Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 2, and I'm going to go ahead and issue a spoiler warning. I'm going to be diving really deep into this, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to ruin things for you. So go watch it and then come back and then we can talk about it. But I want to also apologize. I typically try not to be negative on this channel. I like to speak positively about movies, especially like every once in a while there will be a movie that comes out that a lot of people are really negative on. I like to try to find the positive things in it, but because I think that there's a massive elephant in the room with Stranger Things Volume 2, I kind of got to address it. This set of episodes felt a little underwhelming in my opinion, and there's a lot of things that are going on with this current season that I'm not a big fan of. And I never did a review of the first volume, but I had a couple of issues there, and they've just kind of like continued to get worse. So I'm going to kind of try to dive into it here. I do have lists of positives as well, but I do think that the first thing I want to touch on here, Netflix, your release schedule is absolutely atrocious and terrible, and you do not know how to batch drop things. The reason I'm saying this is because when you do a batch drop, right, part of the thing that makes it work as well as it does is, one, and I think Volume 1 did a really good job with this, you need to have episodes that are so good that, like, once you finish the episode, you're like, I kind of gotta watch the next one. That sounds really good. And I think that this batch also, for the most part, had that. Like, there's definitely, like, when you finish episode 5, you're like, I gotta start episode 6. What happens next? And then I think that there's a similar thing towards the end of episode 6. Yeah, there's a similar thing towards the end of episode 6 where you want to go straight into episode 7. But something that I think doesn't work necessarily as well is when you're doing batch drops, you want the last episode to be the best episode in the batch. Maybe if it's not the best episode in the batch, it at least has some really great moments that stand out that leave you with this sense of like, wow, that was awesome. I can't wait for the next drop. And I think that they really dropped the ball here. I know a couple of people have agreed with me on this, and I know I'm not alone on this. I think episode 7 of season 5 might be one of the weakest episodes of Stranger Things ever, right? We have some really good moments with like the team coming together and them making a plan, which is always a fun time. They usually have a lot of good dialogue. They're cracking a lot of fun jokes. For the most part, everybody's together, which is fun, right? That's kind of like the trope with Stranger Things, is everybody goes their separate ways and then they all come together at the end of the season. So I get it. That's not bad. But there's a couple of jarring issues this year in comparison to a couple of the other years. One, I think that Vecna's plan is still insanely incoherent. It is crazy to me that we're going into the last episode, and for the most part, when it comes to his plan, all we know is that like he's creating a new world. He's trying to combine two different worlds, and we don't know what that means. We don't understand what his motives for doing that is. We don't understand why he had to kidnap 12 kids to do it. And there's just so many different issues with Vecna's plan and the fact that we haven't had it fleshed out that is driving me insane. Because in my opinion, Jamie Campbell Byers, did I just say that right? I might have just butchered his name, but the actor who plays Vecna, in my opinion, is probably like top 3 actors on the show this year. You're giving him nothing. You're giving him absolutely nothing to work with. And for the most part, he hasn't done anything that interesting. You're trying to like humanize him, but also you haven't humanized him at all. Whenever there's like scenes like in the trailer where he's glitching between Vecna and he's glitching between Henry and he's switching between the orderly, it kind of is like setting up this thing that like, okay, yeah, maybe Henry actually isn't that bad of a guy, and that like there's like a good side of him. And they're even trying to like have Max say some lines about like, oh, he's a human, you know, there's a human side of him that we could potentially connect to. He's a good guy. And then like you just kind of like immediately are like, oh no, he's actually a psychopath. Oh yeah, no, he's actually a murderer and he was trying to murder these kids and he is actually really bad. It doesn't matter if he's Henry or Mr. Whatsits or One or Vecna, he's a bad dude. And I hate that. Like, I really think that like it's weird that you're trying so hard to be like, let's humanize him, but also we haven't done that yet. Also, we haven't addressed anything from the Stranger Things play, which in my opinion should not be canon, should not be involved, should not be something that comes up. But they did a good job in Volume 1 of showing something that happens very specifically in the play that a lot of people were like instantly like, oh, the play is going to be important. So a lot of YouTubers were like, here's a breakdown of the play, here's everything you need to know about the play. And they haven't touched on much more of it, and there's so many different elements and aspects of Vecna's character that we haven't dove into. There's a lot of stuff going on with the Hawkins labs and the experiments that they're doing that we haven't dove into. And I feel like there's way too many unanswered questions, way too many characters, and a lot of things that you're just not that invested in. I'm going to keep it so totally for real with you. One of my biggest problems with Volume 1 was that they didn't kill off a single character. And before you're like, oh, but they don't need to kill off characters. It's okay to keep characters alive. That's like just, a weak way to get some emotions out of you. It's also a great way to set stakes. You know what made Vecna an incredible villain in the first season he showed up in? The first episode, Vicky, not Vicky. What's the name of the cheerleader? Oh, Chrissy, Vicky, they're close. They're similar. That was a close one, okay? But either way, Chrissy dies immediately. And at the end of the first episode, she goes snap, crackle, pop, and she's dead, right? Next episode, same thing happens with Fred, right? Or Freddy, whatever his name is. He also dies very gruesomely, and it very much quickly shows the stakes of the fact that Henry's not afraid to kill people to get what he needs, and all of a sudden he's pulling his punches. I don't understand, and especially with at this point in the season, they have not made any efforts to show that he's okay, or they had one throwaway line. Ted Wheeler should be dead. They should have just killed him off. There's literally no reason why they were like, the Demogorgon that completely slashed him across the chest, he's fine though. He's just going to be in an induced coma. Why not just kill off that character? Because one, he's done nothing pretty much the entire length of the show. Two, it'll impact a couple of the main characters in the show, because in my opinion, Nancy was best in this TV show when she had that kind of like survivor's guilt from Barb. Like, that's one of the main things that like drove her character into being the like walk 'em down wheeler that, wields a gun and is constantly fighting and is, this like badass that she is. And a big part of that came from the survivor's guilt. I think that a big part of her relationship with Jonathan came with that survivor's guilt. And unlike Steve, who didn't really get it, Jonathan understands that survivor's guilt because his brother went missing, and that's part of the reason why Jonathan and Nancy work so well as a couple. So, like, you start off this season with, Nancy's gonna have even more survivor's guilt because they have that scene in the hospital where her and Mike kind of have that conversation about, we should have told them, we should have kept them in the loop, they should have known about all these crazy things that have been going on, and that could have been a really interesting arc. But instead they're like, yeah, we're going to keep Ted alive. And now they have a scene with Demodogs and everybody in the hospital and a lot of crazy shit going down in the hospital. They don't even bother showing him or mentioning him, and nobody at any point is going to mention him. And I understand because it's not that important of a character. Yeah. So why not just kill him off and set up the stakes that, like, people can die this season? That's something Stranger Things has been so good at throughout all of the seasons. First season, Benny dies pretty early on. I don't know if it's the first episode, but it's one of the first two episodes, right? Season 2. I might be wrong, actually. I don't remember anybody specifically dying in season 2. Obviously, Bob dies at the end of season 2. But that might be, like, not a good example for somebody dying pretty early on. Season 3, Billy gets taken over by the Flayed. He doesn't necessarily die, but, like, his life is pretty much over at that point. Season 4, like I mentioned, Chrissy. Like, they have constantly set the stage relatively early on in the season that, hey, anybody can die, and they're not doing it this season, and they're also having characters survive absolutely ridiculous things. Molly has survived. Is it Molly or Holly? I think it's Holly. That's my bad. Holly has survived some absolutely insane shit, and it's gotten to a point where it's just like, when characters finally do die in this finale, it's going to feel unearned, it's going to feel out of nowhere, and it's going to be so obvious that they were waiting for the finale to, like, hit us with a gut punch of, oh, this random character is going to die, or they're going to go the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 route, where anybody who was a big fan of those movies beforehand, there's huge discourse, which Guardians are going to die? Oh my god, some of the Guardians are going to die. And then James Gunn pulled a quick one on us, and nobody died. And it was great, everybody got their happy ending. But to do that in a show where people have constantly been dying throughout the entire show and just never have a main character die, that feels stupid to me. That feels really dumb. And I feel like it just doesn't feel on brand for Stranger Things, a show that has been a horror show, a show that has, like, had a pretty badass villain last season, and they're like, okay, we're going to return with the same exact villain, and he's murdered so many military people. And I know before anybody's like, oh yeah, so there's people dying. not a single named character has died. Like, they haven't even killed, like, Akers or, you know, Dr. K. They haven't killed any of the big named, like, military people that we would know and or care about. Not that we would, because these military people are fucking assholes. But, like, so far, they have done absolutely nothing to, like, show that, like, oh, there's, you know, life or death situations here. And so when we start off in this volume 2, you see, I brought it back to volume 2. It took me a minute, but we got there. When you start off this volume 2 with Dustin discovering, oh my god, this thing that they're looking for is actually something incredibly dangerous. It's like dark matter, what is it? It's like dark matter particles or some like antimatter, whatever. It's some like really bad thing that you don't want to touch or mess with. And Nancy, a character who otherwise is usually really smart and strategic and usually thinks out things before she does it, is like, let me just randomly shoot this. Am I the only one who was like, that kind of feels out of character? Or like, I don't know. That to me just felt really stupid. Because I'm like, you have no idea what this thing is. You just saw so many military people were like dead downstairs because of whatever the fuck this is. And you're like, let's shoot it. Am I the only person who was like, that's the dumbest thing in the history of ever? Why the fuck would Nancy do that? I actually was kind of hoping, and here's my thing, right? I don't like necessarily like want specific characters to die, but you need to realize in order to have like emotional impacts in a TV show, sometimes characters dying makes it where you're more connected to the TV show. It makes you more emotionally invested, and even though it's like really devastating, you want something that will emotionally impact you at some way, shape, or form. And so I personally, going into this season, if Jonathan died, I was like, I don't really care. But when you have this incredible heart-to-heart moment, it's like a 10-minute long scene, which like finally this entire season has felt like whiplash because they have too many characters in too many different areas, that like there will be sequences, and once again, this is a complaint for volume 1, but I didn't make a video for volume 1, but there's like sequences where it's like that group of people who went into the Upside Down, Steve, Jonathan, Nancy, and Dustin, they got into a car accident and then they just weren't in the episode for the next 40 minutes because of how many other characters and other subplots are going on. And it's such like a massive thing that like we got a really nice, refreshing 10-minute conversation between Nancy and Jonathan where they both thought they were going to die. They both confessed a bunch of things to each other, and they had this incredible, heartwarming moment where like they kind of fell out of love. Things weren't working out for them, and I just absolutely loved everything about that scene. It really endeared me to their relationship again. It was an incredible moment between two characters who honestly haven't gotten to spend a lot of time together actually on screen. And it was beautiful. And it was one of those moments where it's like, if Jonathan dies here, I'm actually going to be pissed because he's going to die because Nancy randomly decided to shoot some stupid fucking thing that she didn't know and or understand or even know it was something that was like bad. What the fuck? Like, that was... I would have actually hated Nancy's character so much if Jonathan died there. And I would have actually cried for Jonathan's death, which is something I would not have expected going into the season. If Jonathan died, like I said, I'd have been A-okay. But that scene, so fucking good. Charlie, I believe his last name's Heaton, phenomenal. That was such a perfectly acted sequence. It was absolutely phenomenal. And that's kind of the one thing that I have to say about the show, like when I'm talking about a plus side for Volume 2. In my opinion, like the only plus sides for Volume 2, I will say, I'm going to kind of like tiptoe around this because there obviously are other parts that I do like and I'll get into them. In my opinion, there are only like one group of characters that I really care about. And it is that love triangle with Dustin. It's that group of people that went to the Hawkins lab because, one, the mystery of what's going on in the Hawkins lab, that's like peak Stranger Things. We love mysteries, and the way that they solve the mysteries is really cool. Dustin and Steve have been, at odds with each other. The fact that they literally have like a fist fight, that's cool. I really like that. The way that both the scene between Nancy and Jonathan, that's incredible. In my opinion, it might be like one of the best scenes in the entirety of Stranger Things. That was phenomenal. And then the argument between Steve and Dustin, I am obsessed with when a movie or a TV show can have two characters who are so well loved between the fan base, have them have an argument, and them both be right, both be valid, and then like both just go at each other like that. Because Steve, obviously, did he take it too far? Absolutely, 100%. He took it way too far. But him calling out the fact that Eddie died for literally nothing because he wanted to play hero, I'm glad they called it out in the show, because that was one of the most jarring things to me when I rewatched season 4 to like prepare myself for this, was Eddie's death is like the most pointless death in the history of ever. He's like, I'm gonna go buy them more time. One, you have no contact with them. You don't know if they need more time to be bought. Two, you like the demo bats is like the least of their concerns. They're walking into the house of a fucking serial killer. But yeah, these bats, you're gonna save them from these bats for just a little bit. Eddie's death is an incredibly like selfish thing, and it is like him just like kind of wanting to like prove to himself, which good for him, right? He wanted to prove to himself that he's not a coward and he doesn't always run away from things. But like Steve calling out the fact that like his death was 100% unnecessary, and you know he wanted to play hero, and Steve literally told them not to do that, and then he went and did it anyways. I love that they called that out. And I know that I might be in the minority here because I haven't seen any of the discourse online for how people felt about that argument. But, like, Steve calling that out was great. And I do like the fact that, like, Steve was like, we had a plan. And part of the plan would have involved Eddie still being alive and Eddie still being here. But Eddie didn't listen to the plan. And I love that. I love that. Okay, but now to praise that other conversation that I was just talking about, Nancy and Jonathan's conversation. I think that was also insanely well written, and I like the fact that they absolutely 100% hit on the nose the love triangle situation. I love the fact that, like, Jonathan's, like, kind of worried about Steve, and he wants to know Nancy's honest opinion on Steve, and then Nancy kind of explains that, like, she and Steve aren't compatible like that, and that's, you know, she has that wonderful line about like the fact that like Steve knows exactly what he wants, and that's wonderful for him, but she doesn't know what she wants, and she doesn't want to potentially settle and like start to live a life with somebody who has their life all planned out, because that's not really the kind of girl that Nancy is. And I love that. I think that Nancy is a really great character, and I do think that she deserves to end the show single. I think that that is incredible, and that like the twist of having Jonathan unpropose instead of propose, that might be one of the like best twist of a trope I've ever seen in my entire life, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And literally everybody like groaned when they saw the wedding ring, and what they did with the wedding ring in the end, phenomenal. That was fantastic. That was absolutely incredible, and I loved everything about that. But now to rip other things to shred, I hate the fact that nobody has died. I know I've said that. I'm going to say it again. Season 5, episode 5, they start off with Dustin, like, quickly discovering, oh my god, we're in a wormhole, and screaming, we're all going to die. Oh my god, we're all going to die. Oh my god, we're dead. Oh my god. One of the people at the Hawkins lab should have died, right? Nancy and Jonathan both surviving that room. Unrealistic as hell. I absolutely hate it. I do kind of wish that, like, and I know that this would have been like such like a cheesy thing to do, and it probably would not have made as much sense after they had their like their unproposal or whatever. But like Jonathan like hoisting Nancy up or whatever, and then him end up drowning in whatever that sludge was so that Nancy could live, or some kind of like Jack and Rose type situation. That would have been really cool, but that's okay. We didn't need to do that. And then, and this might be a hot take, right? People might absolutely 100% disagree with me. When the black hole opened up in the wall and they were getting sucked through, and there was a chance that Hopper, 8, and 11 were potentially all going to die, I would not have minded if you just killed off that entire group. I love Hopper, but I think that they've faked this out with his death so many times, and the way that they faked this out with his death this season wasn't great. I think that he's incredibly rugged, and yeah, he's a good like fighter, and he's kind of like the dad of the group, but like at this point, if all 3 of those characters died and we didn't have any other super powered beings except for Will, I think that would have been a much more interesting way to end this season. Obviously, 11's like the main character of this show. They're not going to end this show without 11 having some like big grand moment and probably an epic death sequence, because more than likely she is going to die. And I just like, there's so many characters, and they make such a big deal about like, oh my god, this is a wormhole, we're all gonna die, this is crazy, we're in trouble. And the fact that every single person in the Upside Down lives through that really irked me. That really bothered me. The scene with the demo dogs in the hospital, I love Karen Wheeler, right? I've been saying for a while that I wanted her to become a bigger character in the show, and I really wanted her to have like some standout moment. And in my opinion, she got that. When she fought the Demogorgon with her wine bottle, when she was 2 wine bottles down, drunk, getting ready to take a bath, and then all of a sudden she's fighting for her life against a Demogorgon, that was fucking sick. That was fucking incredible. Her coming and saving the kids in the hospital felt like such a deus ex machina that it actually pissed me off. Like, I actually would have preferred the Demodogs killing all 4 of them in that moment to Karen Wheeler being the one to save them. Because, once again, what the fuck? What? No. Stop it. I hated that. And once again, I might be in the minority here. I think that she's a great character. I love that, they're giving her more to do. But also, the fact that she was able to just like unplug all of her like medical stuff and head all the way down there and throw an oxygen tank in a washing machine, and how did she even know that that was there? Like, that creates so many plot holes and issues and errors that I don't love. Another thing I don't like, Vicky is now on board, and so she's technically like a part of the group. And then they brought in finally Mr. Clark, and now he's joined in and he's a part of the group. And there's way too many fucking characters. And I feel like I've said that already. There's way too many fucking characters. At one point, they're sneaking around Hawkins' lab, and you can sneak around Hawkins' lab when it's like 4 little boys and they're like little bicycles or whatever, and maybe one chaperone like Steve or someone. There was like 8 fucking people. And this is like a military guarded Hawkins lab. And they just like, are easily able to like break a couple of cameras, open a gate to the upside down, everybody go into the upside down, which by the way, that's safe. That's totally fine. It's cool. Every single character needed to go into the upside down. That's cool. What? What the fuck? I have so many issues with Volume 2. And so, once again, to bring it back to the release schedule, I think part of the reason releasing this a whole month after the first volume was really stupid is because almost every single theory I have read online was better than what actually happened in these last 3 episodes. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed these last 3 episodes, but holy wow, a lot of things they have set up, they just like finish in like a 1 sentence and then they're moving on to something else. Not a single character died in Shock Jock, which is fine. But we're 7 episodes into the finale. We only have 2 hours left. And the Duffer Brothers, I think, confirmed that there were going to be 4 people who die. And obviously they could have just said that and that could have been a lie. But, like, a character should have died by now. A character really should have died by now. Also, Callie has pretty much just been an exposition dump this entire time. I really don't like her. And I understand they're probably going to do some like crazy twist, and it's like, oh, she's working with Vecna, and she actually led you guys exactly to where Vecna wanted you guys to be or something. But like, I hate it. I'm hating everything about it. But yeah, that being said, I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe. And I have one last thing I want to say, actually. Did the word gay not exist in the 1980s? Because when Will came out, I was waiting for him to say, I'm gay. And then he didn't. He just said, I do not like women. And then I did think it was funny that he had to clarify. He's like, well, no, I like girls, but like, I don't, like, not in the way that, like, the way you guys like girls, I don't, that's not me. That was really funny, actually. I did really enjoy that. But like, that entire coming out thing, I felt was like, really dragged on. And I was waiting for him to say, like, I'm gay, or like, I like men, and like he's just like, I don't like girls. I was like, I guess that's the way to word it. That's the way to say it. Okay. That was a good arc for Will. I should say this. I do like that they're having representation for LGBT community characters. I think that Maya Hawke 100% deserves some kind of acting award for this season because she's been absolutely phenomenal. She portrays having to like be like a homosexual but not being able to be super open about it. She does that so incredibly well, and the way that she gets emotional for Will when Will is coming out and all these different sequences, she's phenomenal in this show. She's doing incredible. I just think that like the dialogue of how he came out wasn't the best. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking that out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.